Welcome everyone to our Frank's Finest show for Section 1C and D, plus the Hudson Valley Football League. And we're going to be showcasing our top players for the classes, as well as being joined by one of our Frank's Finest towards the end of the show for an interview. But we'll be talking about that athlete's growth, as well as breaking down a couple plays, so definitely tune in for that. Now, before we dive into the different players, I do want to, number one, address how we select these players. And the number one thing is film, right? The eye in the sky is the most important thing for us when making these selections. Secondly is coaches' feedback. So that's a big thing. We reach out to the coaches to hear about the players. They know them very well in and outside of the locker room. And stats is the final thing. So not as important as the first two. We do take data very seriously, and you're going to be hearing some numbers as I share them. We usually select about 11 to 13 players on each side of the ball, depending on how many ties we have. If we have a tie and we don't come to a consensus, we add both players. So that's how we're selected. And obviously, if you haven't done so yet, make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe to help support the channel and get our content videos on YouTube. And consider joining our Patreon for some additional coverage and benefit. It really does help support our channel, and we appreciate all our members. So with that said, let's dive into the quarterback spot. Obviously one of the most important positions in football, and this year's quarterback between 1C and D in the Hudson Valley Football League is going to be Julian Ott, the senior from Horace Greeley High School. This young man, 5'11", 170 pounds, and he had a season on a really rough injury last year, cut short, but in 5 games, he had over 900 yards and 9 touchdowns. He was on pace to put up some serious numbers in those 5 games, and I got to tell you, he's a very solid athlete, really benefits from rollout. He does a really good job on rollouts where he can decide whether he wants to throw the ball or run it, but he really improved on his strength, his ability to drive the football on some deep and intermediate routes. Again, his touch on those deep concepts. A much improved player that I watched from the year prior. I'm expecting big things from him as he recovers from injury. He earned the spot as this year's quarterback. Next up, let's talk about some of the skill spots, which are running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. First one I want to talk about is running back Tyler Ratty, the senior from Valhalla. This guy is shifty. He really excelled in counters and sweeps, and he has that explosive ability. He gets that second level, can really hit you with some big chunk plays. He definitely was a weapon in the passing game as well. This is a very versatile weapon for Valhalla, and earned a spot on this list. Next up, running back Darius Smith, the junior from Peekskill. He had over 500 yards and 7 touchdowns last year, and Peekskill's defense last year was really strong, but they needed something offensively to complement that, and he was a big part of that on their run to a title. And he made some big plays in the running game. This is a young man who hits the hole hard, averaged 8 yards a carry, and he's earned a spot on this list. Next up is fullback John Poletti, the senior from Portchester. Big physical back, 6'3", 215 pounds. He had over 600 yards and 8 touchdowns last season. Boy, can he run downhill. And they run this triple option offense where you need a physical fullback, and he fills that void. I love that he can run through arm tackles, run through contact, shows the balance to stay on his feet, and he really punishes DBs. I mean, this is a guy who can really churn yards when he gets his momentum going, and he earned a spot on this list. Next up, let's talk about wide receiver Jake Thomas, the senior from Haldane, 5'11", 170 pounds. He was second on the team in receiving last year. Someone who really made an impact as the season went along. This is a guy who has really solid speed, that he can run some of the deep concepts, run some of the jet sweeps. But what impressed me was his route running. He did a really solid job of running routes, creating some separation outside of his speed, and he earned a spot on this list. Next up, let's talk about wide receiver Jason Kim, the junior from Horace Greeley High School, 5'10", 155 pounds. This guy is shifty in space. He spent a lot of his time in the slot, and he really wins with his route running as well. I love wide receivers who really are detail-oriented in their route running, and he did a really solid job. I'm expecting a huge jump this year, made some big-time plays for Greeley's offense last year, and earned a spot on this list. Next up on this list is wide receiver Jack Piccioni, the junior from Tappan Zee. And I apologize if I don't pronounce your name correctly. Just correct me in the comments on how to say it, or reach out to us. I don't do it out of malice. Not the greatest with names, but let me just talk about Jack. And this young man, basketball kid, and you can see that on the field. I mean, he goes up and attacks the football at its highest point. He had 6 touchdowns last year, over 400 yards receiving, and really excelled at go routes. I mean, this is a guy who, even when a defender's in phase with him, into his body, he goes up, outcompetes them for the football, and he made some big time plays on fades, double moves in the red zone. You can see the athleticism and strong hands, the ability to play through contact, and he earned a spot on this list. Let's move now to the offensive line, and starting up, let's talk offensive lineman Michael Rodriguez, the senior from Dobbs Ferry. 6 feet, 275 pounds. He can really hit you. I mean, down blocks, drive blocks. You can see him move defenders at the point of attack when he has his hands in a good spot. And I tell you what, in this style of offense, you need offensive linemen who can move, and he showed he has the nimble enough feet to down block, get to the second level, and block in space, and even do some pulling. So an impressive young man earned a spot on this list. Another offensive lineman on this list, Mark Guerrero, the junior from Dobbs Ferry. 5'9", 240 pounds. This young man, again, looks like he can squat a fridge. He's shorter, he's compact, he's built like a tree stump, and boy, he uses his leverage and strength well. He's another guy, even though he's undersized, really seals off bigger defenders and can deliver some big time shots with his leverage and with his heavy hand. He also shows he has nimble enough feet to do some of these short pulls, traps, get out on the edge on this offense that needs linemen who can pull and get out on the edge. He does that. I was very impressed watching this young man. I'm expecting some big things this upcoming season. Next up on this list, Dylan Tucker, the senior from Putt Valley. 6'1", 235 pounds, three-sport athlete, big lacrosse guy, and you can see it in his feet. I mean, this is a young man who got reps at fullback, tight end, offensive lineman, and this is where I think he helps anchor down this offensive line because he moves his feet very well and it helps him in pass pro. And he's going to be so big for this offense, and he really showed that, hey, he's willing to go to multiple spots, block for his teammates, and this is somebody who I think really earned a spot on this list with his mobility, with his strength, and is going to be huge in anchoring this offensive line this upcoming season. Next on this list, Cameron Keeperman, the senior from Tappan Zee. 6'2", 230 pounds, all-section wrestler. And this translates to football in this manner. I bring that up because, again, he's a really solid defensive tackle, but when you look on the offensive side at the guard spot, he uses his leverage very well. He knows how to use his leverage. He knows how to use his hands to put in the right spot and control defenders. And I tell you what, you mix that with some of the nimble athleticism you have, and you have a really, really solid interior offensive lineman that earned a spot on this list. Finally, to wrap it all up, let's talk about Kevin Hodge, the junior from Peekskill. I'm at the offensive center spot. 6 foot, 225 pounds, 3-year start. He's been starting since freshman year. Coach raved about his versatility. This is a guy who can play at each spot on the offensive line because of his football IQ. This is a guy who brings some speed and holds up strength-wise against some of the bigger defensive linemen. He earned a spot on this list. Moving to the defensive side, and we'll talk about the defensive linemen and linebackers now. First up is defensive tackle Jamison Stevens, the senior from Woodlands. Big body kid, 6'4", 275 pounds. He's big, strong. He's not easy to move. I like his versatility the most. I mean, you can move him around. He'll be put at defensive tackle, defensive end, sometimes stand-up linebacker on some stunts. He's got deceptive speed for his size and athleticism, and that's why you can move him around. And he made some big plays for this defense, being pretty disruptive. Next on the list, let's talk about defensive lineman Thaddeus Serlo, the senior from Tucko. 6 feet, 210 pounds, a supremely talented pass rusher who got a season cut early last year due to a major injury. But I think people forget how dynamic he was as a sophomore, and he probably comes off, even with injury, as one of the best defensive linemen in the class. This is a guy who can rush off the edge. You can also move him inside a defensive tackle, and he can be disruptive. He has, a really strong burst and uses his hands very well, and we're expecting a big season from him this upcoming year, earning a spot on this list. Next on the list, Darnell Hinton, the junior from Peekskill. Last year, 7 tackles for loss, over 30 tackles, very disruptive player, very active in this defense. It's a very aggressive style defense, and you need guys with the amount of stunting and blitzing that they do to finish tackles, and this is one of their best finishers. He puts a lot of pressure on you. He was very active, and he earned a spot on this list as well. Next up, let's talk about outside linebacker, edge player, a bit of a hybrid, and that is Caden Glenn, the senior from Putt Valley High School. 6'2", 200 pounds. I think one of the best players in this class. He had 8 sacks last year, a real menace blitzing off the edge. Very disruptive, too strong for some of these tight ends and running backs to block, too fast for some of these offensive linemen. Just a really dynamic defender, and it's his mix of speed and his improvement in strength that has really made him a force both in the run game and as a pass rusher, and he was an easy selection this year. Next up, let's talk about another Putt Valley player, linebacker Mateo Dobra, the senior. 6'2", 180 pounds. He was second on the team in tackles last year, and yeah, this is a quarterback I'm talking about playing linebacker. This young man has a nose for the football, and I tell you what, he's a strong tackler, but what I like most, it's such an important part of being a linebacker is being able to fight through blockers to your gap, to the ball carrier, and he did that pretty well. I thought he had some really strong reps in that facet, and he earned a spot on this list. Next up is linebacker Matt Gardier, the senior from Tuckahoe. 6 feet, 195 pounds, had over 70 tackles last year, super active. Again, tackle to tackle, really strong in the box in the running game, and he is as reliable as it comes as the linebackers in this class. And if you want to see, again, what kind of impact he can make, watch the section title game. And to me, it's so important. Consistency is huge, and the ones that can play big in big moments, big games, stand out to me. And in that section title game, he was super active. I would pop him and watch Tuckahoe versus Haldane in that game to really see his impact. But he really popped off tape watching, and he earned a spot on this year's list. Next up on the list, linebacker Aiden Tofa, the senior from Tappan Zee. 6'1", 190 pounds, another very active, over 50 tackles last year. Really productive year. I think he's a really solid scrape linebacker, or a weak side linebacker, where he can use his speed and range to get to the ball carrier, attack from backside, get to the outside of the tackle box. When you can keep offensive linemen off him, he is super productive, and he earned a spot on this list. Next up, let's talk about the defensive backs. And first one up is Josh Berger, the senior from Valhalla. 5'10", 165 pounds, had a couple INTs last year. I like his versatility. He can play at the cornerback spot, he can play at the safety spot, he plays off man, he can drop into some zone coverage. I like his ability to do multiple things in the back end. I also like that he can attack the football at its high point. In phase with wide receivers is an important thing, to not wait for the ball to come down to you, to go attack the wide receiver and attack the football. And he did a really solid job of that, and he earned a spot on this list. You can see the basketball traits leading into this. Next up on the list, defensive back Falou Faye, the senior from Haldane. This young man, 6'4", 160 pounds. Again, basketball, lax, football, the tools are there. Multi-sport kid. He is tall, long, can run, and he played a lot of man-to-man and press man on tape. And those are some of the hardest things to do in high school, is do press man. And he had some really strong reps last year doing that. He can get in phase with his receiver, attack the football. There's some impressive moments watching him on tape, and probably one of the best defensive backs returning in this class. He earned a spot on this list. Another one on this list, one of my favorite watching this past year, is Brody Corliss, the safety from Haldane, the senior. 5'7", not a big guy, 150 pounds. He had 3+ INTs last year. I like that he's a very well-rounded free safety. I mean, he's got really good range. He could play man free. He can play as a high safety, and you can also bounce him into the box. And even though he's small, he tackles really well, and you can add him almost like an additional linebacker tackling in space. So he was second on the team in tackle. He had 78 tackles. Super active last year. Really quality run support guy. So a well-rounded safety. This one was an easy one for me to get him put on this list. Next up, let's talk about safety Christian Ramos, the senior from Walter Panis. 5'10", 170 pounds. Not a super big guy, but boy, is he tough. Tough box safety, physical. I was impressed with his open field tackling. Does a good job of breaking down. Doesn't always go for the kill shot, but he's very productive at bringing guys to the ground. Takes good angles to the football. Keeps things inside of him when he's defending on outside contain. This was a guy, one of the returning starters, who was very productive, even if, again, up and down season overall for the defense. This guy really stood out and earned a spot on this list. Finally, to wrap it off, let's talk about special teams. And this one's going to be a real tough one for me to say, but kicker Daniel DeHerdhaj, the senior from Tuckahoe, and I probably butchered it and I apologize for it, but again, a soccer player coming onto the Tuckahoe side, when kind of roaming around the kickers and punters in this league, it was tough for me because a lot of them have graduated. Again, looking on who can step in and be new, and from what from the feedback that I've gotten from coaches and around, there's a real opportunity here that this guy can really explode. And so for me, with all this uncertainty, this is one of those moments where, again, you're seeing people around saying, hey, the talent is there here, and probably the highest ceiling amongst the kickers that we talked about. Daniel gets the nod here for Tuckahoe. All right, guys, that was the list of our Frank's Finest, but we got an interview coming from one of our Frank's Finest athletes, where we're going to talk about his growth as well as breaking down a couple plays. So I'm very excited to welcome one of them for an interview. Joining the show now, he is the quarterback for the Horace Greeley football program, and that is Julian Osh. Welcome, Julian. We appreciate you joining the show.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here.
Obviously, you've had a very impressive couple seasons, at least on the varsity level. And, when we talk about last year, season was cut short due to injury. And so the first thing I wanted to ask, obviously, is how you're feeling, how that recovery process has gone. What are some details, without getting we don't want to know too many details, obviously, for personal reasons, but how has the recovery process gone for you?
It's been great. Physical therapy has helped a lot. I'm feeling my best right now. I'm 100%. Everything's going really great. and I've been working at Apex Fitness actually. Shout out Skaz and shout out everyone over there.
That's cool.
They've really helped me a lot, and they've helped me grow physically and obviously mentally as well.
Absolutely. A question I've asked some of the other players, and I'll ask you, is when did you start playing football, and who kind of brought you in to playing football?
So I've pretty much played football almost my whole life. Tackle is actually much more recent for me, actually. I really wasn't allowed to play tackle until about 7th grade when I actually lived back in Florida.
Okay.
And that really opened my eyes, and I really loved football then. And then I moved back up here, and that was my first year actually playing quarterback, going into my freshman year, because I was actually a receiver before that. And it was all really new to me, and I actually really loved it, and I just loved the game.
That's cool. And that was my follow-up. I've asked a couple players, and feels like forever ago when I was playing, my dad was a longtime coach in Section 1, and then he would ask players, why do you play football? There's not a right or wrong answer, but I've always wanted to know, what is kind of the mindset? Do you just love the sport? Is it because your friends play? What does football mean to you?
Well, I just love the culture of football. You build a brotherhood with all your teammates and everyone around you. You really have a separate family. And my dad actually played a lot of football when he was younger, and he played at the high school level. He played at Horace Greeley as well, actually. And yeah.
That's cool. As you evaluated yourself, Julian, you've had a lot of success the last couple seasons, but heading into this year, what are some of the things that you wanted to emphasize that you needed to work on, to improve on, whether that's from coaching feedback or evaluating yourself, that you can share with us that you worked on this offseason?
I really went back just to the fundamentals, had to get everything back in place. And I've been working a lot with one of my assistant coaches, who's my QB coach right now, Coach Flora. He's been really great with everything. And we have a new coach coming in, as you know.
Yep.
And it's a little different, but I think it's going to work out very well. He has really great intensity, great everything, and I'm really looking forward to this season.
That's great. All right, let's talk about some plays, Julian, that I brought up from your film. And let's make sure that you can see everything. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. All right, a couple things, and I'll have the play go forward so you can see it, and then we'll talk about it on the back end. And obviously I have you highlighted here. And some of the things I really liked watching your tape is your improvement from one year to the next on the deep ball. And this is a perfect example here. This is just that go route that it's a big timing play. And so my first question to you after watching that is, again, what is your read here? Is it you knew you were going to this receiver right from the get-go? What is kind of some of the process steps? You're just hiking and throwing it to a certain spot. Take me through this play and some of the audience members who might be watching this on how a play like this unfolds.
Yes, this was really a pre-snap read for me. I see my number one receiver is all the way on the outside. The DB's playing about 5 off. It's 2nd and 9 right now. We have all goes all around. So we snap the ball, and I look off for a second, and I'm going right to him, and we're in the boundary. So I have some space for error right there. Mm-hmm. So I just let it fly out there, and I see he fully beats him.
Yeah. See, that's a big thing, right? Those kind of things pre-snap. And I'll go back one more time because I wanted to hear, again, what you're describing pre-snap. So you're seeing this guy right here, and he's looking at you, right? So you know that, okay, does that give an indicator to you that they're playing man coverage across the board? Or do you feel like he could be in a cover two? What was kind of some of the indicators that you look for pre-snap?
Well, he's kind of looking at my eyes, so I'm thinking he's more in a zone-ish kind of read. Yeah.
And he turns and goes, so you know that you have him one-on-one.
Yeah.
That's cool. Next play, probably, and when we get to this one, probably my favorite throw I've seen from you on tape. And this is going to be one that I think is really impressive. You look one way and then deliver on an intermediate to deep strike here over the middle. And now, again, I want to ask a similar question on kind of your process here. You're getting a little motion from the receiver up top. And what is your reads here, going through kind of your progression is what a lot of people call it, to make this throw? You look to your right real quick. Is that pre-designed, or did you think you were going here first and then going back? Take me through your process.
Yes, this play is actually designed for the motion player. He motions in and then he runs a little drag, but he actually got caught up and it turned into like a broken play because he like tripped right here. He ran into the defender, yeah. And then right off that safety's back, I just threw that post because after it was supposed to be the dig, then the dig got caught up with the motioned receiver. So I just threw it right off that defender's back.
And this is great anticipation here because, again, if you're slow on it or if you kind of underthrow it, that defender can pick that ball off, right? Yeah. So this is a great example for those younger quarterbacks might be watching. Again, how fast that progression can go, right?
Yeah. Got to be ready for the next move right away.
Yeah, we'll just let it play because this is one of my favorites right here because I can tell you were trying to go to the drag, gets caught up, so you went to your next option, which is that post.
Yeah.
You know, a big Julian thing that I've seen in your offense in years past, and again, things are a little different probably coming around, is rolling out. And I know that has been a big weapon in your arsenal the last couple of years. So question I have is what do you like about the rollout system? Is it something that coaches kind of pushed on you, or was it something that you really enjoy doing? And we'll let the play run while you talk.
Yeah. It's kind of like a mutual thing, honestly. I mean, I really like rolling out. It gives me multiple options because we're running a lot of flood, so we're flooding the zone, always a receiver open. And even if no one's open, I could just use my legs and get a couple yards if needed.
Absolutely. That's a big thing that I noticed from you. And, you know, heading into this upcoming year, you know, as you take me through this play, you're rolling out, they're flooding the zone like you said, which is, again, they're running some sort of zone, and you want to put more routes than they can cover, right? That's what the whole concept of flooding that zone is doing. And if there's no one there, right, because it looks like on the screen right here, everyone's pretty covered, right? The defense is doing a pretty good job. You're starting to get out on the edge. And this is what I think called threading the needle, right? You're attacking the line of scrimmage, you get that extra power. I mean, that's a dime right there, Julian. Did you?
Yeah, you definitely get more power on the run as well.
Yeah.
Get more momentum, get to drive the ball.
So we've seen a couple really impressive plays from you. There's the last concept I want to evaluate you, which is running the ball. And here's a little thing where it's a great thing and a bad thing, right? Because I'm going to scold you a little bit, Julian, out of just as a coach, right? So I love this aspect of a quarterback who can get involved in the running game. But it's the end of this play that if I was your coach, Julian, it would give me heartburn on this. And you know the reason, right?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So I love your willingness to run. I love the willingness to dip your shoulder, but there's a difference between dipping a shoulder and dipping a head, right?
100%. I was not thinking when that happened, and I don't even know why I did that. Just happened. Honestly, I should have dumped it to the receiver on the RPO.
But you know what? You got your eyes upfield. You see some space. You go for it. And I notice this sometimes. Has anyone taught you how to slide, Julian?
Maybe a little bit, but not really, honestly.
No? I mean, I love the toughness, right? But again, there's a difference, right? Running backs, wide receivers, they can exude that toughness all the time.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks, they don't grow on trees, right?
Yeah.
And you're so very important to your team. So I love the aggressiveness. Hey, you know what? If it's third down, I got to get that yard. I love that. Yeah. That's a great thing. But avoiding unnecessary hits as a quarterback is also an art, right?
Yeah.
Have you thought about trying to add kind of that aspect to your arsenal at all? Because I know you've taken some hard hits over the last year.
100%. That's one of my main goals this year, to get down before major contact.
Yeah.
Maybe go into a couple hits just because, get that extra yard, but I'm definitely going to avoid that much more.
Yeah. My final question to you, Julian, and I've asked this before, how would you describe yourself as a quarterback? For those watching, what makes Julian tick? What separates you from say, you know, any other player in the section or in the class?
I think being able to stay composed, like through adversity, through contact, and through bad plays. Always got to get up for the next play. Quarterback, the leader of the team. You got to just keep going.
That's great. And that's all the questions that I had. I mean, it was a lot of fun talking to you, Julian. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and speak to the audience. Congratulations once again on being Frank's finest.
Thank you so much. Love being here. Love talking to you.
All right, Julian. Have a great start to the season. Good luck at the start of camp.
You as well. Thank you.
All right, guys, that was our show. Thank you all so much. Congratulations to all the players that have selected. We appreciate your support as always. And again, if you haven't done so yet, make sure you hit that thumbs up and subscribe to support the channel. Think about joining our Patreon. It really is helpful to our group and keeps us growing. But with that, we'll be signing off. Good luck to everyone at practice. See you soon.